Requirements are elements in Mint that define a set of required conditions for resources to fulfill. For example, a resource might fulfill a specific requirement if they are assigned the recurrent training record item and a medical check record item. Requirements can be used to limit or identify resources based on organizations, locations, and qualifications. Once a requirement is created, it can be used in the following ways. As eligibility for a slot group. As a currency cycle for qualifications. To define who to send notifications to. Scheduling criteria. To define who can grade or be graded with ad hoc forms. And as conditions in reports. When you select or create a new requirement from the Queries page, you'll see the Alternative 1 folder, which contains constraints. For any requirement, you can create multiple alternatives. Each alternative defines a set of conditions that fulfill the requirement. A resource fulfills the requirement if they match the conditions for any of the alternatives. The first type of constraint you can define is organization. You'll drag over the desired organization and select whether you want to include sub-organizations as well. This type of constraint is useful if, for example, you'd like to send a weekly notification to a certain department. You could also use the organization constraint along with scheduling criteria to tell the system to schedule internal instructors before freelancers for a training. Location constraints can be useful if you'd like to restrict which resources meet eligibility for a slot group based on location. For example, if you have multiple training locations, you might want to only schedule instructors from one location. Drag over the required locations and define whether you want to include sub-locations. While you can create constraints just based on the element like location, you can also base conditions on property values. For example, you define a constraint where a resource item must be set to past to fulfill the requirement. When defining a constraint with a record item, you can define whether a resource must, for example, hold all the qualifications listed or any, meaning one or more would fulfill the requirement. The last requirement example we'll explore is an assignment condition requirement, which can be used to define a currency cycle. We'll drag over our recurrent training qualification. Then, we'll right-click to create a new assignment condition. If we select Add, we can create a new type of assignment condition by defining the cycle length, offset, early and late grace, the due period, and more. For our example currency, we're going to use a pre-created 12-month cycle with a 3-month grace period. Select the event date property, which will be used to calculate currency from. Ours will be the issue date of the qualification. Click OK, and save our new currency requirement. Once this requirement is added to the assignment validation of a record item, the system will calculate an expiration cycle based off the issue date. You can view resources involved in this cycle using the currency queue on the main Mint page. Lastly, we'd like to note that requirements don't have to be viewed from the Queries page. Users without access to this page can scroll to the bottom of the Record Items and Requirements pane to view requirements and their definitions. For more information on requirements, visit your Mint manual.